Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Don't mind me. This episode is going to be entitled The Mad Scientist Fills His Fat Face. I have COVID and haven't eaten in almost 3 days, and someone just brought me home a Big Mac, and I've decided I'm going to eat it. So while we're doing that, I suppose we can get around to sleepers, breakouts, and busts. And here to join me to do that today is SC Romero. SC, thanks for coming back, man. It's always great to have you.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you having me. Sorry you have COVID. I've had that before. I know it sucks. So no, go ahead and stuff your face there, man. Enjoy that Big Mac. I know it's been tough for you. So yeah, man. Let's talk some sleeper breakouts and bust. And thank you for having me as always.
Well, or before we do that, you want to take a second to tell everyone where they can find you and your work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So at the PPR, so on Twitter, you can find me uploading a question of the day every day relevant to fantasy football. You can find me on Dynasty Pros, their Devi show. We're doing every other Monday, but we do have a double header. We just did one this past Monday, doing another one this upcoming Monday. I believe we're going into the Big 12. Also have some articles out on RPO Football. Check me out on there. But yeah, man, just excited to talk some football, and it's always a blast being on here.
Sweet. It is always fun. You're one of my favorites. Let's get right into it, man. Of course, I transition over, but instead of having the graphic already loaded up, I was too busy feeding my fat face a Big Mac. So it's going to take me a second to get Desmond Ridder on the screen. There he is. Desmond Ridder is your sleeper. That would be Atlanta Falcons quarterback. Fantasy Pros has him projected as QB 31. 2,923.2 passing yards, 16.5 touchdowns to 10.4 interceptions, 172.4 rushing yards, and 1.4 touchdowns. Why is Desmond Ridder your sleeper?
Man, I feel the graphic lag because so many people are sleeping on him, man. I don't get it. This guy has arguably a top, if not the one, dynasty RB, if not the one dynasty tight end, a top 15 wide receiver. Last year in 4 games, he averaged over 177 yards, just over 177 yards in his 4 games that he got to play at the end of the season. This year's a breakout. He didn't have Kyle Pitts in those games. Kyle Pitts alone, his rookie year when he was healthy without Desmond Ridder, averaged just over 60 yards per game. At that end, this guy can do a lot. I believe he's going to have a great season. They don't have a lot outside Kyle Pitts and Drake London, but Bijan's there now, and that's just going to be a phenomenal support system for him. Team has been raving about him. They're saying he's a leader. He leads with confidence. He's on the field with confidence. He's going to improve, and he's going to show a lot of people that he's a top 15 quarterback.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. This is the second show in a row we've had a way down there quarterback, and I actually am trying to acquire both of them. The other one being Sam Howell in Dynasty. I like both of them, more so because of the rushing upside. Sure. I think both of them have weapons. Are good weapons. I'm not sure at this point who has better weapons. We have McLaurin and Dotson against Drake London. So it's probably edge Washington, but then Atlanta gets the edge at tight end, and I would say Atlanta pretty easily gets the edge at running back as well. So both of them definitely have some upside, and they deserve to go much higher than they are. I like both of them. I think they're great sleepers. I don't necessarily know if I'm not drafting either of them in one QB leagues.
For sure. That's fair.
I'd be drafting them as my second QB in a lot of super flex leagues, and that's pretty much what they are. You can see Ridder currently goes as QB 31, 196th overall, right after Howell. So both are pretty much free, last round picks or undrafted. What do you think of this range here? It's pretty much free quarterbacks.
The one, with you, Sam Howell would be the one where I would be like, oh, do I want Howell or do I want Ridder? But honestly, over Purdy, over Jones, over Garoppolo. I'm taking him over Lance, but I'm a big person that doesn't believe Lance is it. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. But I'm taking him over Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, even Levis. In some super flex leagues, I'm seeing Levis go before Ritter. And I'm like, Levis is even starting right now. You know what I mean? Like it's Ryan Tannehill. And the last 2 seasons, I just had to look it up with Arthur Smith before he went to Atlanta. Tannehill was a QB8 and QB12. So there is a high ceiling that he does use that quarterback. And guess what? Tannehill had a great running back in Derrick Henry too. He now gets Bijan, man. I think he's beating his ADP, and I think you're getting him as low as you can right now if you're doing a startup draft.
Excuse me, sorry, forced that Big Mac down too quick. I agree with you though. I think I'm taking the two of them over everyone in this range. I don't like Purdy, Love, Mac Jones, Garoppolo, anyone here. So pretty handily, I'll take all of them. Is there anybody, how far up do we get before you like, how are there any guys up here you would take Ritter over?
I mean, in a startup right now, I would take him over Pickett. I would take him over probably Matthew, Stafford, and Carr. I do like them both this season. Like we just heard Cooper Kupp went down, so I don't know necessarily what's going on with Kupp. But that's just not a good sign. I do like Carr a lot this season, but if I'm doing Dynasty, I think I'd rather have the upside of the youth and Ritter over going Carr. Kyler's a hard one. He's been hurt. We all know what's really going on with him. Kyler Murray, if he's healthy, he is the better quarterback. But if he's falling that late and I need a quarterback, I might end up taking Ritter over Kyler just because I know Ritter's starting where I'm still uncertain with Kyler. And that's as crazy as that sounds because healthy Kyler is better. But I think in the startup, I might go Ritter because I don't know what's going on with him.
I'm torn with Kyler. I agree with what you're saying, and I thought for the most part Kyler was going to miss half the season. The
Right.
more reports I hear out of camp, the more it sounds like he might be ready. So I might be cooling my take on that. But you're right. As it stands now, I think I'd probably have the Howell Ritter duo over Kyler just because I know they're going to be ready and they're 40, 50 picks later. So give me the discount and the certainty of it.
For sure.
We will move on here to your breakout, which is I wasn't sure which of the two you had. Your breakout is Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins, wide receiver 12, according to Fantasy Pros, 2.9 rushing yards, so nothing noteworthy. Projected for 80.7 receptions, 1,092.4 receiving yards, and 6.5 touchdowns. What do you got to say about T?
Man, I think, bearing the setback that Joe Burrow has right now, a healthy team, they have Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase have yet to been healthy for a full season together. Okay. When they are healthy, they're going to be what Lockett and DK Metcalf are. Lockett and DK Metcalf over the last 2 seasons have only missed 2 games combined together. They were both by Lockett. Higgins and Chase have missed 7. Put them both on the field, they're a threat. I'm going, 5-6 more receptions over what they're saying here, and I think he gets over 1,100 yards. I really think this is a big season for Joe Burrow. I think he has a MVP, possibly over 5K season, and guess what? It's going to be because Higgins and Chase stay healthy all year, and we're going to see him explode into a possible top 12 wide receiver, only because Chase is there. Chase wasn't there. He's top 10, but it is possible we see them both in the top 10 also.
I said for the last 2 years that I thought Higgins and Chase were a 1A and 1B, but I've cooled off recently a bit on Higgins, and I definitely think he's the 2, not the 1B, which is odd to say for a guy who I just rode to a championship in a couple of leagues. Yeah. It's odd that I would have him on a couple of title-winning teams, and then I would be lower on him next year, but I'm not lower on him. I just think I'm not low on him. I just think I'm lower than I have been. Like there were points where I would have probably taken T. Higgins over Jamar Chase, and I've cooled off significantly on that.
For sure.
We also see here he's going as wide receiver 12, 31st overall, but there seems to be a huge gap. Like you've got a whole bunch of them going in the first 2 rounds, and then we see a 7-pick gap before T goes. Somehow Devonta Smith is ranked lower than him in wide receivers, but goes at 2 picks before him. I'm not sure what the glitch in the matrix is here, but God only knows what Fantasy Pros is doing. What do you think about this range in his ADP, though?
I mean, I think that's fair. I do think that I told you before, so it's like hard saying this is a breakout, but just where he's finished, I think we finally see that top 12 finish, which is what he's ranked accordingly here. In the startup, though, I mean, I love Tyreek Hill, I love Diggs, I love Adams, but in the startup, I might be taking Higgins over them. Like, I won't pay the cost on those three guys because of their age, so I might go Higgins because I know he's a lesser value, but I'm happy having him as my one or my two, honestly, two or one.
Okay.
So.
Two separate questions here. As far as redraft goes this year, how many of these guys here can you move him above? Or do you think he stays put at 12?
No, not over Jefferson, not over Chase, not over AJB or CD Lamb, not over Diggs.
You think he stays put at 12 for redraft?
No, I mean, I think he goes up, maybe to top 8, top 10.
Okay. As far as out of the 11 above him for Dynasty, where do you have him out of these 12 for Dynasty?
Definitely 8.
Obviously, Jefferson and Chase are 1 and 2, obviously, but
for sure. So I mean, I would move people around, but I would take him over Kupp, Hill, Adams, and Diggs right now in Dynasty.
So you have him probably 6th-ish, 7th-ish, something around like that, maybe?
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. It's definitely a weird spot in the ADP where you go from like there's the elite of the elite, and then you go from the range where they're good and they could be elite, but you're not sure if they're elite and if they can stay healthy. Kind of like a Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. We think they're elite. We just haven't really seen them have that. They've had great seasons. They just haven't had that breakout monster season, but that I guess is why he's listed as your breakout.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All righty. We will move along here to your final player. That is the bust. Is painful for me because I've had him a few because I like this guy this year anyways. Your bust is Carolina running back Miles Sanders. Fantasy Pros has him at RB21, projecting 1,008.1 rushing yards, 6.1 rushing touchdowns, 28.2 receptions, 191.2 receiving yards, and 0.8 receiving touchdowns. Why are you out on Miles Sanders?
Man, I was in the same. I might be overthinking it because I was in the same boat when he first got traded or first got signed by Carolina, not traded. That he's gonna have a great season, but overthinking it. This guy in his first 3 years averaged 12 carries per game. Last year he averaged 15.2, so that workload definitely has to be there. First 3 seasons he had a total of 12 touchdowns. Last season he had 11. So it's just there's some uncertainty there. He was on a better team with the Eagles, right? He's going to a team where he doesn't really have the supporting cast necessary to take the pressure off him. Who's their top receiver? Adam Thielen? Okay, Mingo. Hayden Hurst is their tight end 1 right now. You have a rookie quarterback coming in. There's a lot of pressure on Miles Sanders, and with him having some injuries in the past, this is something I don't really like him going into because I think having Jalen Hurts back there, having AJB, Devontae Smith, having that pressure go elsewhere helped him have a full healthy season where now it's like, dude, this is all on you. They know they're going to run the rock with you, and it's going to be a tough workload for him.
I've never been a Miles Sanders fan, and I agree with everything you're saying. The only reason I've had a lot of shares this year is you've listed the weapons. There's not really anything else. I just think I don't think there's anyone really in the backfield to challenge him. I think he probably carries the ball 15 times a game. I think he just might become a check down target, like a check down monster for a rookie quarterback. Normally, I would lean towards a tight end. They don't really have a use like Hayden Hurst, I guess. Yeah. So my choices were either like I've kind of accepted that I think Thielen will be the receiver to own if any of them are worthwhile in fantasy. But so then my options were, do I want to decide to go with Hayden Hurst or do I want to decide to go with Miles Sanders? And I just thought Miles Sanders was the more likely outcome. And at RB20 range, he seems to fall in drafts to where I need a running back. So it's not necessarily that I'm high on him. I just think the opportunity share is there. The cost is pretty low. Like he's going 49th overall. I get everything you're saying. I just think it's one of those cases like I play a lot of poker.
Yeah.
I get priced in on him. He's a guy where I'm just priced in where I'm going, the opportunity's too good. The cost is too good. I can't really afford to pass on this. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I agree.
He's like, if you're looking at the glass half full, glass half empty, he's right where the water touches the air. You know what I mean? Like he's right there. Like you can say no weapons, or you can say no weapon. You know, so he's right there on the surface. I don't think you're making a bad pick getting him. I think that's just the downside and the bust possibilities is the exact reasons why he could break out as well.
Yeah, there's also the potential that this offense is just a total dumpster fire and nobody will be usable. You can't rule that out. I like to think at least one, or every team has one useful player. I learned that in my years when I started with fantasy hockey. Even the worst of the worst typically had one player worth drafting. You know, even if you have teams like, well, it's the same way in football. You'll have 9 Eagles and Chiefs go in the first 2 rounds, and the lone Panther would be drafted in the 8th round. Every team has one guy, so I tend to think that Miles Sanders and or Adam Thielen will be the only 2 possibly useful assets here. He's being drafted as a mid to low end RB2. And I mean, even if he ends up being just a flex play for me, I guess I don't hate it. I probably don't feel comfortable if I have to actually start him as my RB2. I'd much rather have him as my 3rd RB. And I don't know that at that ADP you're going to be able to do so unless you've really gone RB heavy, which I don't know about you. I don't typically have 3 running backs in my first 50 picks. So that scares me the more I think about it. So you're either going to have to be 3 out of your first 4 picks, or 3 out of your first 4 picks are running backs and he's your flex back, or you have not gone RB heavy and he's going to be your RB1 or RB2. Oh, that would be terrifying. If I went receiver, quarterback, tight end, and he's my RB1, good God, do I feel uncomfortable going into the season.
No, I mean, honestly, though, I'm taking Madison over him. I think just because I like that system. You know,
I like Dobbins, Akers, and Rachaad White in this range. I also don't mind James Conner.
I love Rachaad White in that range. I think he's definitely on the verge of a great season. He's shown pass catching abilities. James Conner too. You know, I like James Conner, but if I'm getting James Conner, I'm getting Keontae Ingram later.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't even have to ask why you would do that. I think that one speaks for itself. So that one's a pretty easy one. All right, SC. Well, as always, thanks for joining me. It's always a pleasure. Wish you'd be able to get out to the expo and we could meet up in person, but I guess we'll have to hold off another year for that. And I'll owe you a couple of beers for these podcast appearances. You want to take another second here to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, brother. SC Romero at the PPR. So on Twitter, you can find me with the Dynasty Pros under Devi. So every other Monday, but again, we're having a double header coming up this Monday. We just did one this past Monday over the Big Ten, Pac-10.
What nights do you do the PPR show?
The PPR side I haven't brought back, man. I'm working on rebranding, so some exciting stuff coming in.
Oh, I was gonna say, what nights do you do the PPR show? I was I don't ever see it coming out, and I was like, oh, I haven't been on that show yet. What's up with that? Well, that explains what's up with that. You haven't been doing it.
I have you on top of the list, man, to get people over, so have a conversation there when we get that back up and ready. So it'll be exciting. I'll definitely let you know as soon as I get it. We'll work something out, get this going. But yeah, man, always fun having you and talking to you about fantasy football. I love stepping in the lab and having some lessons with the mad scientist.
Yeah, man, it's always fun. I always like having you. I look on my guest list and I say, oh, okay, we're good. It's SC today. Some people are harder to get through the episode than others, and some like to have fun. I like to have fun. So
for sure, bro.
Well, this has been Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts with SC Romero. Once again, I'm Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thank you once again to SC for joining me, and thank you all for watching. Take care and have a good night.